Welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, 8 Proven Steps to Implement Your Newest Strategy and Strengthen Teamwork. My name is Eliana Raggio, and I'll be your moderator today. And today's webinar is being presented by DealerOn. And for anyone who isn't familiar with DealerOn, well, we're an award-winning website development company and digital agency, best known for our search engine optimization, best-in-class customer service, and our award-winning websites. Recently at NADA, DealerOn received the Best in Show Award for website design from Dealer Marketing magazine. DealerOn was named the top-rated website provider by Driving Sales in 2012 and 2013, and DealerOn customers have been winners of the Digital Dealer Website Excellence Awards, highly coveted overall winner 4 times in a row. We're the only website company that can claim that. DealerOn is so committed to lead conversion, optimization, and customer service that we're the only company in the industry to offer a money-back lead guarantee program. So does your website company guarantee you leads? Well, then maybe you should check us out at dealeron.com. And we have a great show in store for you today. We're very pleased to have Glenn Pasch as our presenter today. Glenn Pasch is the CEO and partner of PCG Digital Marketing. He's also a speaker, writer, coach, and operations strategist, as well as a customer service fanatic. A trainer at heart, Glenn works with executive management and internal teams to develop new strategies around digital marketing initiatives that will enable businesses to achieve their desired objectives and priorities. Glenn has more than 25 years of experience with a proven track record of leading diverse teams of professionals to new levels of achievement in a variety of highly competitive markets and fast-paced environments. Glenn speaks on a variety of topics that cover business leadership, change management, digital marketing, and the impact of this new technology on culture, business, and society. He writes for multiple industry publications, and his articles can easily be found online. And Glenn can be reached at glenn@pcgmailer.com. Now, during the presentation, if you have any questions, please use the question feature located on the corner of your screen to submit them. At the end of the presentation, we'll answer those questions of general interest. If we're unable to get to your question live, don't worry, we're going to respond by email to you later today. Also, don't forget, a link to download a copy of the webinar recording will be emailed to you later today for your reference, and please feel free to share it with friends and colleagues. And I also want to let you know that DealerOn is going to be at the upcoming AutoCon convention. It's going to be September 4th, 5th, and 6th at the Aria Resorts and Casino in Las Vegas, baby. And we're going to be at booth 304. So please stop by and say hi. And actually, PCG is also going to be there as well. I'm not sure about their booth number, but you should definitely go stop by and check them out as well. I'm going to be there. It's going to be a great convention. And for more information or to buy tickets, go to autocon2013.com. Also, while you're there, please check out the speaking session with the CEO of DealerOn, Ali Admirazrani. He'll be talking about advanced SEO, and he packs a room every time he presents. It's a great, great event. And actually, our speaker today, Glenn Pasch, is also going to be speaking at AutoCon. You definitely don't want to miss that. And we have great news for all of you attendees out there. Our good friends at PCG Digital Marketing are going to be giving away Glenn's checklist for training success for everyone that attends this live broadcast today. All you have to do is email Glenn directly with the subject line, Dealer on Webinar, and email him at Glenn, with 2 N's, at pcgmailer.com, and he'll send you that checklist. Everyone's a winner today, and not to be outdone, PCG Digital Marketing is also going to be awarding a free 30-minute training assessment with Glenn himself to 5 of you lucky webinar attendees. And if that wasn't enough, also at the conclusion of the webinar, you're going to receive a short survey, so fill it out because we're always looking for great feedback from our audience. We're going to randomly select a couple of people from all the completed surveys to also win some Google prizes. We're going to have some fun today, so let's get started. Let's learn the 8 proven steps to implement your newest strategy and strengthen teamwork. Glenn, my goodness, I have known you for years, and this is the first time I have had the pleasure to webinar with you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I look forward to hopefully providing a lot of value, but more importantly, things that the attendees can utilize on a day-to-day basis. So let's dive in. As Eliana said, if you have any questions, just type them and we'll get to them. This is a subject that a lot of times doesn't get a lot of traction. Everyone's going out to get the newest strategy. Everyone's going to go get the newest widget, new idea. But what happens is that we don't really have a process when we get back to the dealership to implement it, to make sure that it does, we do try it out. A lot of good ideas, a lot of thoughts, but a lot of times you take a lot of notes at these conferences and you find your book or list maybe a month down the road and you go, oh, we never really tried it, or you want to try it, but you don't know how to, so hopefully I'll be able to get you through some of those things. So what we're going to talk about today, some of the objectives, overview of current training methods, what's out there, what works in my opinion, want to get feedback from you, what you're currently doing as well. We're going to go over my 8-step coaching process, how I designed this, a little bit about myself. I worked in the hospitality industry for a long time. I also was an actor, so that sort of goes hand in hand. And I developed this just because I worked in kitchens as cooks and waiters, and after hospitality, I went out and I started training customer service agents and teams, so I fully understand what it's like running a team, how to get results, the pressures that you have from the higher ups to say, where are my results, how come I'm not selling more? And you might think it's a little odd that someone who's handling digital marketing will be talking about this, but that's one of the values that we also add from PCG is I can go into dealerships and look at processes and teams and help them clear out some of the roadblocks toward success, so that this coaching process I've developed, I've used for 25 years, and people still to this day who I've worked with still email me and say, I still use it and it still works. It's really simple, really clear, and my teams appreciate that. So I think you'll find some real good value for that. We're also going to talk about reviewing results and accountability, because that training is one half of it. The bigger issue that we always want to look at is how do we go back and monitor results, and how do we hold people accountable without them being offended or thinking that I'm just a disciplinarian. So we're going to show you skills about that, and always ask questions. If you don't understand something, please ask. If you walk away from this webinar and you don't understand something, make sure you ask a question. I'm always available. If you think about something a few days from now and you don't remember, or you have a question of how this works, even if you don't win the training session, just reach out to me by email. I'll be more than happy to give you a call, and you can always bounce questions off of me. You do not have to be a client of PCG to pick my brain, and if you're at AutoCon, grab me aside. I'd love to help you. So let's dive right in here. So training or classroom education is starting to morph. Historically, classroom training, or most training, was person in the front, preach out to everyone. The problem with that is that it's a one-size-fits-all training. So that person at the front would lecture, and hopefully people would get the information. And if you think back to your schooling, each week maybe we're working on a chapter, and what did we do? We took a test, and we got some right, some wrong. And the problem is that we never really had it set up where we made sure we stopped and learned everything from that chapter before we moved on. So what I always call that is sort of Swiss cheese learning. So if you think about it, let's say you took a test and you got an 85 out of 100. Well, that still means 15 questions you didn't get right. How many of us took the time to go back and learn those 15 to make sure we had them? How many did the classes take time to go back and say, okay, before we move on, let's make sure we all get these, we get 100%. Everybody knows it because we're stacking things on top of it. No, we just moved on and hoped that people learned it. And now we're on, and so if you see how this starts to stack, where even if we're an 85 all the time, a very solid B student, even if you were an A student and got 9 out of 10 right, there's still one question wrong, and by the end of 50 chapters, wow, there's 50 things that I didn't know, and it sort of puts these gaps. So what I'm hoping that this process helps you do is close those gaps. Allows you to train individually, even if it's a group, how to strategically see how to help people, and then more importantly, through your follow-up and accountability, really close these holes up so that everybody understands what they have to do and are achieving goals. So really, out there today, there's really more or less about, I call it like 5 general types of training. We have the classroom. So either you're going to a class, you're going to a lecture, someone's coming in, but we're still set up in that classroom style. Excuse me, we have the webinar, which we're on today. Still, there's feedback going on, but it's still coming out to you. There's mobile apps, so we're learning more, pods, training. So that's why I also say then the next one is video self, meaning that we have these training modules that we're getting and we learn and look at them at our own pace and we're tested. Then there's also book learning still. People read either online or books, but we're still learning from books. The question is, all of this training then, how is it implemented? That's the bigger issue. It's not that we don't send our people to education, which I advocate, and more people should be going out to conferences and webinars to educate themselves to stay current. But when I bring this information back, how is it implemented? How are we implementing this into the day-to-day workload of our team, our whole staff, or even for ourselves? So quickly, before we move on, Eliana, let's ask our first poll question.
Excellent. Audience, it's your turn to participate in today's presentation. We want to know what you think. We want to know right now, what type of learning tool works best for you? Please select one of the following answers. Once we get a majority of the votes, we're going to close this poll and share the results. So do you prefer a classroom setting? Oh my gosh, I have a frog in my throat. Excuse me. Do you prefer classroom setting? Do you prefer webinars? Secretly, of course, I hope you like webinars. Do you like self-study videos? Are you more of a reader? You like self-study books? Or is it the real-world environment that really helps you do it, understand it, work it, and remember it? So whatever the answer is, we want to know. Like I said, once we get a majority of the votes, we're going to close the poll and share the results. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to unduly influence anyone to say webinar. If webinar does not work the best for you, please don't vote that way. We want your real answer. All right? And Glenn, before I say the answers, any idea which one you've heard from other dealers works best for them?
I think it's a combination of mostly I think where a lot of it's moving to is the video pods, but ultimately people need that real world, someone show me how to do it, make sure I'm doing it right, which alleviates a lot of the gaps of, well, this is what I think I should be doing. So right. I would have to think it's one of those two.
Probably. Well, you know what? In just another minute, we're going to find out. All right, audience, if you have all of your votes in, we're going to close this poll and share the... Ooh, more votes are coming in. Okay, we're going to close this poll and share the results. Well, Glenn, you were right. 52% of today's audience said real-world environment really works for them. And thank you very much to that 33% who said it was webinars. Appreciate you very much. 10% of today's audience said it was a classroom environment that they enjoy. And 5% said that they liked self-study videos. No one said self-study books, because books take too long. Why read a book if you can watch a video? I have no idea. Glenn, what do you think about that?
I think that's right. As I said, I think ultimately everybody needs help or really is looking for how do I implement whatever learning I'm doing into my job, because just learning it and then I need guidance. And really this is what this webinar is about, how to guide these people. So if they go to a webinar and they see one of the webinars that Dealer On has put on and they come back with great ideas, well, how do I translate that? How do I teach my team? How do I convince my manager that this is, and how do I implement it and make it work? I think that's ultimately the biggest thing. So getting trainers into your dealership is also very helpful. I know sometimes dealer principals and general managers look at it as a cost. I look at it as an investment, because long term, if my team is trained well, they're implemented, they're executing, and we're holding them accountable and constantly tweaking them, that money that we invested in them will be paying off dividends long term. So let's move on. So this is our learning circle. This is the way that really people do learn. They start with input, they get feedback, either giving it and getting it. Then change starts to implement, meaning that we start focusing on implementing that change in behavior. And then the more that we sit in this change, getting feedback change, then we move over into what we'll call learning. And so it becomes this circle of learning and to input, because it doesn't stop with learning. As you see, it constantly rolls around, and that's the way that we constantly learn. Problem is, a lot of people have a breakdown in one of these, and a lot of times this one right here, change is very tough. People do not like to change. They fight change. We all get in our patterns, and if you think of yourself in real life, not just work, change is tough. And so why is change hard? And if you understand this as a trainer, or if you're a leader of a team, understanding that change is hard. Why? Because a lot of times it's a battle of what we want versus what we need. You know, we need to watch what we're eating, but we want that chocolate cake. It's versus right now. I want it right now. I don't want pain. You know, again, if you think about it in your real life, and this is why I blend real life with whatever group I'm teaching, in this case automotive dealers and employees, is that we all love those changes. I always go back to New Year's resolutions. You know, New Year's resolutions, we're going to do something about it, and it's a short-term burst for a month. I've seen it with training. Everybody gets a new idea that first month, those first couple weeks. Everyone's focused on it. Ownership's focused on it. Everybody's focused on it. We're going to, and 3 weeks later, everybody's on to the next new shiny object, and the follow-through is what happens. So you know, in terms of thinking about if you're losing weight, it's a long-term process. You didn't put on weight quickly. You're not going to lose it quickly. So again, it's that battle of why do I want to go through pain? So the more that we understand and explain it to people that this is not painful, this is for them, this is going to benefit them, they're more willing to change. There are still going to be people that are going to fight you, and you've seen it in people you may know in your personal life. I use smoking and weight as the two ones. People a lot of times don't stop smoking until the doctor tells them, listen, if you don't, you're dying. Or if you don't lose weight, you're going to go on medicine. I mean, sometimes you need that high level, you know, pain point to push you over into change. But we don't want to threaten people to get people to do it. I'm a believer on if we educate them and follow this coaching process, we're going to win people over. And this is just, again, change, just so you understand, not everything is easy. So what percentage of people fail with their New Year's resolutions? 88%. That's a little crazy. 30 to 50% of businesses go out of business. New businesses go out of business in 5 years because, again, it's long term. Diets, 90%. So as you can see, there's a lot of times where people fail. People stop doing it because they look at it and saying this is too much work instead of pacing it out little bit, or they have that long-term burst and they start going, is this really worth it? You have to be a person as a leader, as a coach of your team. You have to constantly be selling them on the idea of the success. And as I said, through this accountability, which we'll talk about, you're there and people see you as a coach, not as a boss, not as a disciplinarian, but I'm there to help you succeed. So let's jump into the real nuts and bolts of this whole coaching process. So when you're talking to people, there are studies, and I'm sure you can find a lot of these online. I use a form and a test when I come in to understand that there are 4 different communication styles. There are different ones that you see. Myers-Briggs talks about different personality styles. But this is in terms of how people receive and give communication. So I want to just touch briefly on these 4 different ones, because how you talk to people, and as I go through this, think about people who work in your dealership, think of people on your team, think of people that you work with who may jump onto one of these or stand out. Dominators, probably a lot of dominators in this business, because dominators are numbers driven. They want to get right to the point. They don't want to know how you did something. You know, if you give a report to your boss, they flip to the last page. Did we win? Did we lose? That's it. They don't want to hear how you got this. They don't want to hear about your dramas. They don't want to hear why it didn't work, whatever. It's a yes or no. When I used to coach people, I'd go up and start working with them. They would just cut me off and say, okay, what do you want me to do? Tell me, get out of my hair. Leave me alone. Okay, that's the dominators. Now, conversationalists, they're more of the people who want to talk. So they're the people that need to talk to you about their weekend before you can get to business. So there were people that I knew that I had to go up and say, how was your weekend? How was yesterday? What'd you do with the kids? Let them get that out of their system before I get into what I need them to do. So understand, if I stop them, if I don't let them talk, they're going to be frustrated. Now they're not listening to me. What they're doing is they're saying, wow, their brain's going into, why don't you listen to me? Why don't you let you talk? You don't respect me. Wow, I see, now their head's filled up with stuff instead of letting them go. The calculators, those are the people who need to know nuts and bolts exactly what you want them to do. They're the ones who are going to go step by step by step by step by step. So you have to make sure that you implement it. Those people do not want to take risks. In terms of, let's say, in the dealership, a customer who comes in, they're the ones who have printed out the 57 sheets and done all their research online and know where you got the car from and what the mileage is and what the package is. They're the ones who are coming saying, I want this, 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 and this. They've done their homework. So same thing. Some people in your dealership, if you're going to go up and you want them to do certain behaviors, you need to map it out for them. If you map it out for them, it'll be successful. If you leave it up to them, they won't do it. They're going to be confused. Now, if you notice, the largest group of people are the planners. What I call them is the planners. They are the more habit-driven. They are the ones who come in at the same time. They stop at the same coffee shop every day. They may have the same thing for lunch every day. They are set in their ways. So anytime you're talking about changing something, it disturbs them because they think, they immediately go to, how does this impact the rest of my life? So, for example, a customer coming in, they're the ones who are saying, listen, my lease was $249. I need to stay right around that. If you go up to $300 a month on a lease price, they're starting to go, well, now where is that $50 coming from? Is it coming from, and they're starting to think how this change is going to hurt them. So same thing, your behaviors for your team, if you need them to answer calls a certain way, or I need you to do this first beyond that, you have to explain it to them, how it's not going to ruin their day, how it's going to make them more successful, help them work it into their schedule of doing things. Just don't dump it on them, because again, they're going to get distracted on the negatives versus on how this is going to maybe make their life easier. So by understanding how people receive communication differently, you're able to tailor your communication to them. You'll find that you're going to be more successful. And again, if anybody wants the title or the company that provided me these little sheets where people fill it out, and then you can tell them to shoot me an email again at glenn@pcgmailer.com. I'll give you that information, and you can, order them, and it's pretty fun. And even for yourselves, as we go through this, think of which one of these people you may fall into. So poll question number 2, Eliana, if you would.
Thank you very much, Glenn. All right, audience, poll question number 2 is right in front of you. So please get involved and let's find out what's happening at your dealership. So finish this statement. The training in your dealership is, and please select one of the following answers. Is it ongoing? Is it occasional? Is it sporadic? Or is it non-existent? Once we get a majority of the votes, we're going to close this poll and share the results, and I think you're going to be surprised by these answers that are coming in, Glenn. People are still voting. Thank you so much for getting involved. The information that you share with us on these webinars really helps us to see what's going on in the dealership. And we do have some people that are writing in their votes. I'm going to guess that you guys are probably on an iPad, and I guess you can't vote. That's what I've heard, that some people who are on a tablet, maybe they can't vote during these poll questions. And I do appreciate your answers. Thank you so much. But if at all possible, please try and vote on the screen if you could. Oh, gosh, you guys are great. Almost everyone's voted now. Thank you so much. I'll tell you what, we're going to close this poll and share the results for you. Glenn, are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. 58% of today's audience said that it's ongoing. That's a really big amount. That's awesome. Only 8% of today's audience said it was occasional. 33% of today's audience, a third of today's audience, said that it was sporadic. And no one said that they're not being trained. No one voted for non-existent. So that's good news. What do you think about that?
I think that's great, and it doesn't surprise me. We're seeing more and more people value training. So the fact that it is ongoing is great. That shows that your owners, your managers, your leaders are looking at yourself and the rest of your team as valuable, and also understand that it's very competitive. That's why this type of webinar, and I've been asked to speak on this a lot more in terms of training and process, because people are understanding that it's very competitive out there nowadays, and it's not so much the product, it's the execution of the product. Because if you think about, for argument's sake, a CRM, every CRM, is any one CRM product massively different than everyone else? They have different tweaks, but at the end of the day, it's about, are you using that fully? So the more that training that you can do and accountability on holding your team accountable to use the product, you're going to benefit. And dealers are understanding that I need to invest in training if I'm going to increase my close ratio, my engagement. If I'm going to stand out in the marketplace, I have to have informed, smart, knowledgeable people who are going to feel that we value them and we invest in them, versus the old school of throw you out on the floor, cross your fingers, and maybe they'll learn, and then I'm screaming, why aren't you selling cars? But yet I haven't invested in the training. So fantastic. That's great news. So let's move on to the next one. So let's talk about this implement. So let's dive in, because this is the meat and potatoes here, and this is what we really want to talk about, is the 8-step coaching process. And we'll go through each of these. The key is that as we walk through this, it's understanding how each of these pieces stack up on top of each other. And when you're doing this, I will caution you to be careful that you don't say, wow, that's a lot of time I'm spending with someone. Understand is that if you spend the time, you're going to spend time anyway. You're either going to spend time in the front end of training, doing it right, where it tapers down and you go into more maintenance and accountability. And if you follow this process, it's easier to get somebody back on track, and I'll explain why. Or you're going to spend it on the back end, retraining over and over and over again. So really it depends on where you want to spend your time training. So let's go through each of these steps and understand how it stacks up. So the first part of the coaching process, it's very common sense. I need to explain what needs to happen. It's a high level. So let's say that you're going to implement a new script for your BDC or for your salespeople, saying this is the new script that we are going to use. Okay, so we are going to explain what's going to happen. So we are going to be implementing a new script. Okay, and what's going to happen is we're going to train you on this, and it's going to take the place of this, this, and this. See what I'm saying? We're explaining what's happening. The more that someone understands what's coming at them, what you're doing is you're cutting off questions later on. You're keeping them focused on this. And again, this is not anything that is that lengthy, but you're telling them, here's what the change is going to be. Here is what's going to happen. Pretty simple, pretty easy. The next thing is why. This is a common mistake. People don't take the time to explain to their team why something is happening. The days of top-down, I'm in the corner office, I'm in the ivory tower, and I'm sending out a memo to say, we're going to be using this new script, please make sure it happens. People don't understand why. So understand now, and think of your time, maybe if maybe you are a trainer right now of your team or a leader of your team, but think when you were on a team and these, types of one-sided messages came out to you, did your mind start going into, well, why are we changing? I liked what we did before. Why is this? Now defensive mechanisms start building up on your team versus saying, here's why we're implementing this new script. We've been monitoring our results, and we think that where the gap is from getting people from appointment to show is that we've been listening and there's been questions, and I think we can do a better job in presenting information, which in turn will help us getting more people in the showroom and sell cars. So that's why we're going to be changing the script. So notice that it's a why. It takes that whole question off the table. If anybody has a question at that time, well, then we can have that dialogue. Well, why are we changing? I mean, I thought the old one was working before. Okay, let me answer that because of X, Y, and Z. You're involving your team. One little side note, when employees and managers were asked what's most important to employees, when they asked managers and owners, what are the 5 things that are most important to your employees? Managers, of course, think the first thing is money. Okay, that's the most important thing, money. When they polled the employees, money was number 5. What number 1 was being kept in the loop. And number 2 was being asked their opinions, being involved. So understand that. The fact that you're involving your team in part of the decision, allowing them their voice to ask a question why, especially because they're the front line of doing this. And you're a manager, sometimes as you move further and further away from that front line engagement, you need that information to make sure that your ideas are going to be implemented. They may have some good ideas, so allow that communication back. But understanding and asking and explaining why takes a lot of confusion off the table. Now the next one, of course, again, notice it's what, why, how. How the changes will happen. What I mean by that is, how are we implementing this? So what's going to happen is, I'm going to print out this script. I'm going to give it to you all tonight. I'd like you to read it. Bring your comments. Tomorrow, what we're going to do is we're going to have a session, and I'm going to read it so you hear how it is. We're going to practice it. We're going to implement. I'm going to answer any questions, and then starting on Monday, we're going to start using this script. So understand, here's how the training process happens. Again, you're taking away questions, concerns from someone to say, well, what's going to happen? How is this going to fit? I mean, I have work to do over here. This is going to take away. Versus saying, we're going to train tomorrow at 10 o'clock. I need everybody to make sure that hour is clear. Anybody who has an issue with that or something, please come to me and let me know. So again, you've empowered your team to come to you and say, I have something, I have an appointment coming in here at 10:30 to sell a car. And is it going to take longer of that? Can I come in a little early to start this? Then it allows them to feel empowered. You can say, no, you can leave at 10:30. I'll fill you in later on, or you and I can catch up later on, but I need to get the group going. So again, what's going to happen? Why is it important? How it's going to happen. Demonstration. This is out of this coaching process, there are 2 steps that are the most important. This is number 1. Number 1, most important, demonstration. This is the biggest failure of training, and this is why this process works. So in the case of our script, I'm going to demonstrate how it's going to be. I'm going to read the script so you know how it sounds. If I'm going to teach you how to use the CRM, I'm going to show you what I want done. Doesn't matter if it's the road to the sale, and I'm going to show you how I want a form filled out, or I want you to, here's how I'm going to sell here in our dealership. I'm going to show you what I expect. Now, many of you may have been on the receiving end of this, or your brain jumps to this, especially when it comes to salespeople. Well, Bob came from John Smith dealership. He's been selling cars for 10 years. He should already know how to do this. So you skip this step. Understand, you're demonstrating what you want to be done in your dealership. Yes, it's great that Bob over here has sold cars for 10 years. That means I can talk at a quicker level. But what I'm doing is I'm teaching Bob the language of our dealership. When we say this, we mean this. But more importantly, this is how we do this here. It will also allow me to cut out any things where Bob goes, well, what we used to do at the other store is X, Y, and Z. Now, maybe that's a very good idea. I never thought of that. But that's something that I can say to Bob, well, that's great. We might want to look at that, and maybe we'll talk about that another time, but I need you to do it this way. What this step cuts out from your training later on, when you go back to an employee and they're not doing what you wanted them to do, what it takes away is that question, and again, if some of you are coaches and trainers here, when people turn around and will say to you, oh, Glenn, is that what you wanted me to do? Oh, I thought you wanted something different. See, people understand words in different ways. So you watch what you say. If this step allows you to take out any confusion, because again, if you say, listen, I need you to fill out the form fully. Well, fully to me might be not the same to someone else. And then I'm leaving my team to interpret what I want them to do. I don't want to take away any interpretations. I want you to see what I'm doing, okay? Then there's no misunderstandings. You see what I want. You can then question, and I can work this out, but more importantly, I demonstrate it. And again, don't make the mistake of thinking that anything is too small to demonstrate. Here's how we answer the phone. Here's how we log calls. Here, you can speed through it depending on how quickly they understand it, but don't skip that step. It will save you time. This is the key to invest, to make sure that they understand, solve your problems ahead of time. As I said, later on I'll explain how this piece allows you to get your team back on track when we're talking about monitoring results. The next step is role play. So in the case of our script, I read the script to you. Okay? Now I want you to read the script back to me. Why? Because maybe you tried to memorize it. I don't need it, I memorize it, and you skip lines. Maybe you're struggling over a word. Maybe you're reading too fast. Maybe you're reading too slow. Maybe you're distracted. Something, I don't know, but I don't want to just give you the script, show it to you, and say, everybody got it? Because think about it. Who is going to sit there in front of their GM and go, excuse me, in a room of 20 people, go, excuse me, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're talking about. Nobody wants to be seen as the person who is slowing down everyone else. So by role playing, I get them up to speed. What I also do is save my leads. I don't throw them out there and ruin leads because they're stumbling over something. Same thing. I'm not throwing somebody who just came and I got hired and throw them out on the floor, and I know that happens. And that is sometimes one of the roadblocks. Well, you know, when I was brought in here, they just threw me on the floor with no training, just said, hey, go sell cars, so that means everybody else has to do it that way. No. Just because you got a bad deal doesn't mean your team needs a bad deal moving forward. Role play with them. So in one case, I'm going to be the customer. You're going to read me the script. So I work it out. On the flip side, I'm going to read the script. You be the customer and see how I answer questions and handle these things. So again, we role play. It's a safe environment for the application of doing something. Okay, so again, they're doing it in front of you before it's live, so this way I can tweak their performance, even if it's CRM. Okay, here's 3 leads, load them into the CRM, and I watch them do it. Okay, let's look at your results. No, you forgot to do this. Okay, feedback, as I said, this is the point where you're tweaking them, giving them feedback, getting their feedback. Well, this is uncomfortable for me. You know, I usually do it this way. Well, then do you understand why? Go back to the why we're changing. Yeah, but, you know, this has always worked for me. Now I can have a negotiation on why they need to work at it, work with it, try it, and that's where your salesmanship comes in, to sell them on the idea, to get them to do it, and let them know you'll be there to help them through any of their feeling, you know, uncomfortable. But it's, again, role-playing feedback. Before I let them go on their own, I want to make sure they're doing it the same way I did before I let them go. There will always be, side note number 2, there will always be a difference between style and technique. What I mean by that is you could have your 5 points to 7 steps or whatever number of steps you have to the sale for your salespeople, let's say. Everyone's going to do it differently. It's just their personality. Some people are bubbly, some people are very direct, whatever. But if I strip away that style, they should be hitting these 7 points. Same thing here. Just because someone has their own style, you have to make sure that what you're critiquing is technique. Are they hitting the steps you want? They may not do it exactly like you, but they better be hitting all those steps. That's where this role play and feedback comes in. So again, by the time I leave them, I saw them doing it correctly. That's the key. So again, we take a break now. We regroup before we're done. We explain what changes. I want them to tell me what the change was. See, me telling them again and them just nodding their head, I don't know if they really get it. So I explained what happened, why, how, I demonstrated. Now we role play. I gave them feedback, and now they're doing it correctly. My last question is, okay, Bob, what is the change? Explain to me the change from what we changed and why we did it. Well, we're doing this, and this is what we did, and this is the new change, and this is what. Okay, so what are we going to be doing moving forward? We're going to be doing X, Y, and Z. Great job, Bob. See, that last time is in case they lost a piece of it, I can get them back on track. So notice what we did. We got them, explained it, I demonstrated, we role played. Now I'm right in front of them and watching them doing it correctly. They understand what they're supposed to do. They just told me what they're supposed to do. Think about that in the future. How can there be any confusion going forward? If I demonstrated, I watched them, they were doing it perfectly, they just told me what they're supposed to do. How in the future can they look at me and say, oh, I didn't understand what you were saying? Okay? And this, out of the ones that we were saying as the most important, demonstration is one of the most important. The second one is follow-up. Because again, you had them perfect here. But again, with anything with change, people will drift back to old habits because the pressure of selling or the pressure of the environment or just human nature, they'll try it a couple times and go, it's not working, I'm going back to the way I used to. Or they just will start changing things. It's your job to follow up and keep them in line, keep them going. The amount of follow-up, we'll discuss in a minute, changes over time. It's not the same. Each person is going to get a different style depending on where they're at. That's where we break away from this one-size-fits-all to a more individualized training, to individualized follow-up. So demonstration, follow-up, incredibly important. So let's move on to the, I believe the last of the poll questions. Go ahead, Evelyn.
All right, audience. Third poll question is right in front of you. We want to know what's happening at your dealership. So the question is, at your dealership, follow-up and accountability is, and please answer the question by completing that sentence on what's happening at your dealership. So select one of the following answers. Follow-up and accountability is done in front of everyone. It's done in small groups. It's done individually, or is just never done. Whichever one is the answer, we want to know. Once we get a majority of the votes, we're going to close this poll, share the results, and again, even though this is the last poll question today, of course, we want to thank you for your participation in these poll questions. And your votes, they do matter. and some people are writing in all of them. How could it be all of them? It can't be all of them. It's got to be one. If it's all of them, then I guess it's done in front of everyone.
No, I guess no. That's not necessarily. Again, it depends on the individual. But this is in general. In general, are you seeing follow-up done? As I said, follow-up and discussion of results. Is it done in front of everyone? Is it groups? Is it one-on-one? Especially when you're working through, following up on accountability and things like that. A lot of times positive is done in front of everybody, sometimes negative is done individually or vice versa. So just trying to get a feel for what groups are doing out there.
Well, you heard the man. What are you guys doing out there? We still don't have a majority of the votes in. I don't know if I should close this poll. Come on, nudge the person next to you and get them to vote. And, oh, here we go. Man, that actually worked. People started voting. Okay, we're going to close this poll and share the results. Here we go. You ready for this, Glenn?
Sure.
Okay, only 6% of today's audience said that it's done in front of everyone, but 44% is done in small groups. 39% of today's audience said that it's done individually. And I'm really surprised by this. 11%, that's like, that's a tenth of the audience. 11% said that it's never done. Is that?
That is, Well, it's not surprising because a lot of times people have learned not to do accountability in front of a whole group. You don't want to embarrass anybody, especially if it's a negative accountability or holding people accountable. Now, there are still people that will do it in front of groups where it's like, hey, we didn't miss it. They may not call an individual out. They may talk about it as a group. Again, where a lot of accountability or follow-up is where a lot of times it's out of balance is people spend too much time on negative and not enough positive. So people have a tendency, well, you're always telling me when I'm not doing something. Did you tell me when I did do well? So again, we're going to talk about how to handle that situation. It doesn't surprise me. It does surprise me a little bit that 10% don't do it, but it's not uncommon because I have talked to dealers who will say, we get so wrapped up, I don't follow up as much as I should on X and hold them accountable on X. I trust that they will. I'm assuming they're doing it. So again, trusting and assuming and hoping. We really can't really run our businesses on hope. Again, I'm going to show you that accountability is not about tons of time. If you've trained correctly, we can get them back on track. We can talk about it in a language where it takes our time to a smaller fact. A lot of times people think, wow, if I got to go follow up on everybody, that's going to take a lot of time. It really shouldn't. So let's move into that piece of it. So we went through the coaching process and everybody's doing well and they're off and running. So the key is monitoring results when we do follow-up. There's a couple points that I love to make when we're talking about follow-up and monitoring results. It's really black or white. Did you achieve your goals, yes or no? Now, a lot of times it will lead to excuses and people get defensive of why they did, and we'll address that in a moment. But you as a leader, you as a team leader, getting your managers to understand how to do this is we want to take emotion out, and it's very tough. I know it. I was in the shoes of running teams, and you take it personally, and there is frustration at times, especially when you thought we could have done better and things of that nature, but you got to take the emotion out of it, especially when you're looking at people or groups. It's very easy to start talking in blanket statements of failures or even successes. One of the things that people need to also understand is just because you hit your numbers doesn't mean you're doing it correctly. It could have just been the luck of the draw. We used to call them the lay-down sales. Someone who's coming in, I have a guy who works with me a couple guys who used to work in retail, and they'd say, you had the people who were walking in with a check on their forehead. They're buying a car today, and it didn't matter. The receptionist could have sold them a car. It doesn't matter. So you have to be careful that hitting numbers could not have been masked by outside influences. A sale you're running, an event you're running, just something happened that it's not repeatable month in and month out. So we're all happy this month, and then next month we're going, what the hell happened? But, so again, you got to make sure that when we're hitting our numbers too, we look at things. And then sometimes missing numbers is a good thing. I know your dealers are all going, shh, Glenn, don't ever say that. What I mean by that is that sometimes as a coach, you have to let somebody run into the wall. You have to let someone fail. If you don't let them fail, you end up creating a dependent team. If you answer their questions, if you save them all the time, if you see it coming and you say, hey, Bob, don't forget to do X. Hey, Bob, don't forget to do Y, because, yes, in the short term, it's going to help you. Long term, Bob is going to be waiting for you to tell them. What you've done is trained Bob to depend on you, and you're out that day. You're tied up with someone else. Bob doesn't know what to do. Bob's lost. And then you start looking at it going, well, Bob's not a great employee. You've actually trained them to be dependent. So again, sometimes you have to let them fail. I know it's not pretty, but you got to think long-term, short-term. This one failure, I can address it, get them back on track, then he's not going to repeat that mistake going forward. So when we follow up, let's talk about the one side. We hit our goals. As I said, this is one of the biggest area of weaknesses for a lot of managers because they get so tied up and happy that we hit our numbers. I've sat in sales meetings. Okay, today's August 1st. So you had your meeting. Let's say you had a great month last month. What do most dealers and general managers say? Great job, everybody. Let's do it again. Let's get out there and do it again. Or let's do better. The key is, as a coach, as a trainer. What you need to do is make sure the people on your team know what they did to achieve those results, because then they can repeat it. We repeat behavior when we're patted on the back. Think of how any of you out there have children, what did you do? You encouraged behavior, and people encourage, and the kids will repeat behavior. If they get negative, probably not going to repeat, or they're testing your limits. So in the case of sales, let's say we had a great month, ask that individual salesperson who maybe had their best month. They sold 20 cars this month. That's their best month. They usually sell 15. I would sit down and say, Bob, great job. Great job. Tell me, what did you do differently this month than last month? Well, here's what I did. I went through the database and I made extra calls, or I followed up and I made sure that I did this, and I set reminders for myself to do this. And when there was downtime, nobody in the dealership, I started looking here, or I went over into service and did a little equity mining, or talked to the people in the waiting room, whatever it is. Then I would be saying, great, Bob, that's what you need to do every single month. So that way, down the road, Bob next month goes back to selling 15 cars. I can say, Bob, tell me what you did. I thought you said you were going to make some phone calls. I thought you were going to do this. Did you do what you were successful in July? Here it is, end of August. We're in September. August wasn't a good month. What happened? Did you do the same things you did in July? Yes or no? See, now we're getting them to understand that behavior caused, it wasn't just a lucky month. It wasn't the car god shined on you this month. It was your work, sweat equity that got this. Let's make sure you understand that's your new work plan that you need to do. Now I can hold you accountable to it. Now let's say we missed our goals. Okay? Bob over here usually sells 15 cars. He only sold 11 cars. Okay? Keep emotion out of it. There's a tendency for some managers to jump to emotional guns. Oh, Bob was slacking. Bob's a loser. Man, I knew Bob wasn't. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Now I'm dealing with Bob as a person. Get out of it. As a trainer, you don't talk about people. You don't talk about personality. You don't talk about anything like that. You focus on the numbers. Okay? And you have to keep asking questions till you get to the root cause. One of my ex-managers, he was a national manager who I trained, he said, you know, Glenn, I never thought of you, man. He goes, you know what the thing about management, I never thought you were managing me. The only thing you did was always ask questions. He goes, you never told me what to do. You just kept asking me questions till I figured out the answer. So think of it that way. So if Bob's at 12 cars, yeah, did Bob have a bad month? Yeah, I got to fix him. That's what a coach does. Okay, Bob, tell me what you did. Understand that what Bob's going to initially give you is some of the reasons why. Ancillary reason, well, you know, there's a bunch of old people on the list, and, you know, it was the weather, and it rained. Bob, that's out of your control. You cannot control the rain. You cannot control who calls us. You cannot control who shows up on the lot. That's out of our control. What did you do? Let's dig in. How did you handle leads? What did you do with your time in between when you were sitting around in the dealership or you had free time? How did you follow up? Show me your work plan. How did you walk me through your day-to-day schedule? See, I keep drilling down until I find out what Bob did. When I find out what Bob did, then I can adjust the behavior. Now notice, if we go back to the coaching process, if I had trained him on a certain thing, if all of a sudden Bob didn't do it, I get Bob back on track to what he's supposed to be doing. I've got to find out from Bob what pulled him out of the way, what stopped him from doing this behavior. So this way, if I'm implementing a new strategy, now Bob's not doing the strategy, I got to figure out why Bob's not doing it, what caused it. See, now I've drilled down. I asked you to make the calls using this script. What happened? Well, I went back to my old script. What do you mean you went back to your old script? Okay. So again, when we miss our goal, it has nothing to do with Bob as a person. We're talking about behavior. If we keep it on behavior, people will listen to us. If it gets personal and then people get defensive, people start thinking you're mean, whatever, this is about behavior. This has nothing to do with them as a person. So when we sit down with Bob, the first question I'm going to ask myself as a trainer was this person trained to do this task? A lot of it can be assumptions. People will assume that they were trained. Oh, somebody else, they should know better, going back to that again. So the question was, yes, they were trained, or no, they weren't. If they were not trained, then train them on the coaching process. Shame on you, shame on the company, whatever. Strike it up that they don't know, they weren't trained properly. Let's train them. We can get rid of this excuse, get them on track. Okay, so that's number one. Now, let's assume that they were trained. Okay, so let's say they sit down and we know that Bob was trained. Bob went through the training because I was in the class and I'm the one who taught it, and there was Bob sitting there and he did this. So I'm going to ask him the best question. I'm going to say to Bob, before I judge what happened, before I start training and retraining Bob, I'm going to ask Bob, what do you remember from training about the scripts, or about the CRM, or about how we greet our customers? What do you remember from training? There's only 3 things that Bob can tell me. One is somehow he doesn't remember. He lost it in his brain and he was too afraid to come and ask us. Okay. He half remembers what it is, got some of it, doesn't, or he remembers it. Understand that my next step for training Bob to get him back on track, 3 different styles. Most managers make the mistake of, okay, I got to train Bob on how to do this again. But understand that if Bob knows what he's supposed to do, but there's some other reason why he didn't do it, if I just go back and start training him again on how to do it, part of his brain is calling me, he's an idiot, he doesn't understand me, this is why I don't like Glenn as a manager, he doesn't listen to me, or whatever. If he doesn't remember, great, I got to go back to square one. Okay, shame on me, maybe it wasn't clear, somehow you slipped through the cracks, let me go back to square one, get him on, go through the coaching process. If he half remembers, tell him what he's doing right. Again, anchor in the behavior that he's doing right. We want to make sure he knows what he's doing right. Keep doing that. Here's where you're wrong. Let's retrain him. And again, you can probably move through that 8-step process really, really quickly. You understand why, what, how. Let's dive in demonstration. Watch your role play. Okay, you're back on track. Go. If he remembers it, notice now my training is about a different conversation. My training now becomes about why. Maybe it's, I had a fight with my spouse. I'm not feeling well. I had pressure over here, you know. I had a couple, you know, Bob dealer principle blew me out of the water, and I just, whatever it is. Now I can focus my training on how you got to leave stuff at the doorstep, or how you handle certain situations, you know, because what that's doing is affecting what you're actually supposed to be doing. Hence, it's affecting your sales, which will eventually circle around to people coming down on you. But notice, then that person is going to say, wow, Glenn understands. Glenn listens. He's treating me like a person, not just you don't know what to do, here it is again. So understand, this is how we're tailoring this training when we're following up. Okay? A lot of times it's number 3, it's they don't remember. Now, I mean, they remember, they just, for some other bad day, they started to go back into bad habits. We got to get them and get them back on track. But remember, if we train them the first way and they were doing it in front of me, it's easy for me to say, well, Bob, 3 weeks ago you were doing it in front of me, but now you're over here. How did we get here? How did we get here? See, I'm not dealing with Bob as a person. We got off track, but it's also easier for me to get him back on track because he understands he did it for me and there was no misunderstanding. So again, if they're following up and they hit, reinforce it, as I just said. If they don't, find out what the behavior was. Okay? So again, reinforce behavior. If they don't, find out what the behavior was, train them accordingly. Now, I'm always asked this question, and I wanted to share it with you, is, well, what happens if it continues to miss? Bob continues to miss. Bob's been trained, Bob's been retrained, but still Bob just is not doing what we need Bob to do. Well, that's a decision. Now, when I trained people, I always presented myself, even when I ran groups, ran offices, even in my current position now, I tell everyone I don't like being the boss, meaning that I want to be here as a coach, as a mentor. We're all in this together. I have a different role than you do, but I don't like being, quote unquote, the boss. So I used to always say there were rules on the wall. This is the rules of behavior. I did not come and drag you out of your bed to make you work here. You came to me and said, may I have a job here? I said, yes, here are the rules on the wall. Can you do these rules? Yes, I can. Great. Let's go to work. Now, for some reason, you're making me come over to the wall because you're not following these rules. Now I got to put on my boss hat. Now we're going down a road of disciplinary actions. But notice, it's not my fault. See, this is why, but if you've trained correctly and held them accountable and been there to coach them, they can't turn around and say, oh, Glenn's just a bad boss. Like, how is it my fault? Have I trained you? Yes. Have I retrained you? Yes. And you still choose not to do it, so how is it my fault? See, again, you take that out. There's no emotion. They can't pin any, oh, you were always mean to me. Where am I mean to you? I'm always coaching you and training you. How am I mean? So when you're disciplined, again, keep it simple. Okay, number one thing you should do is have some, I know it's at the bottom, but understand you should always have someone there with you as a witness, especially male, female, older, younger, whatever. Always have somebody there as a third party to witness the conversation because it keeps things on track. But more importantly, it takes out that, well, this is not what they said this. You always have a witness. Be clear. Do not drag this out. If you're discipline somebody or somebody's not following the behavior, keep it short, keep it sweet, to the point, move on. Don't get caught up in long explanations. By the time that they're in front of you for discipline, they know they're there. It shouldn't be a surprise to them, okay, because you've done the training, retraining, like, come on, Bob, how many times I got to do this? You're putting me in a bad position now. Now we have to go down this road of discipline. They're driving that bus. So be clear what happened. Focused on the behavior, not the person. So, Bob, you understood this is what we expect from you. This is the way that we do things. Your behavior is that you're doing X, Y, and Z, which is contrary to what we want. Okay? This is what we're witnessing. We've talked to you before. Here's our training evaluations. Here's the work we've done with you before. But still, okay? Now, we cannot have that. So as I said, keep it short, clear on what happened, focus on the behavior. Now you talk about what's going to happen next. Now, Bob, if this continues, okay, if this continues and you choose not to comply, understand, Bob, you're choosing not to comply. I would think that we have trained you well enough. I've seen you do it correctly. Now you're not doing it correctly, so it's not an issue of training. This is an issue of you choosing not to comply. If you choose to continue there, the next step is going to be whatever escalation is in your office, a written documentation, a suspension without pay, or this may lead to you losing your job. Okay? So I want to be clear. This is what's going to happen. This is what I need to see from you. If not, here's what it is. And please document this conversation. Whatever form you have, if you have an HR department, either outsourced or internally, somebody needs to document this conversation. Here's what happened. Here's what we expect. Here's the next steps. Everybody signs it. Because then if you go down to the next step and Bob's sitting in front of you again saying, well, Bob, here's where you are, they can't say, well, no one ever told me. Here's the form. Is this your signature? It says right here, if you do it again, this is what's going to happen. See, again, it takes out emotions. It takes out personality. It's just focusing on behavior. The key is, if you've trained correctly according to this process to implement your strategy, you've taken away, I don't know what you're talking about. You get people, ability to get people back on track really, really easy, because most people want to do a good job, but then you also flesh out the people who just are not going to do it. And you have to make a personal decision as an owner, as a leader of the team, is keeping this person on valuable. Now, a side note number 3, possibly my last side note, sometimes it is said, well, you know, Bob, he always sells those 18 cars. What am I going to do? I can't get rid of him. I'm going to lose 18 cars. The question is that you have to think bigger picture. What does letting Bob get away with this, how does this impact the rest of your team? Okay? Because if Bob's not going to do it, well, then that's going to trickle out to everyone else. Now everybody's not doing it, and then maybe they're going to sell a little less cars because now they're upset that you disciplined them and you didn't discipline Bob. And again, there's always side deals. I will never say that I didn't make side deals with people, but forward-facing to my team, everybody was treated the same way. behind the scenes, I might give Bob one more chance, pull him aside and go, are you crazy? And talk to him, human to human instead of boss employee, and say, do you know what position you're putting me in? You're putting me in a position where I may have to let you go. Why? Do you want to go home and tell your wife that you lost your job because you don't want to follow this? Is that really what you want to do? Sometimes you have to be straight like that. But understand, if you let Bob go, everyone else may fall in line, and if you have a few other salespeople, maybe they pick up a couple of those cars. But more importantly is you won your team over, they're moving forward. They also understand, well, if Bob just got let go and he sells 18 cars and I only sell 12 cars, I better start pushing because, man, they just got rid of their top salesperson. So understand, but disciplining, I want to get back to that, is keep it clear, keep somebody with you, document, 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 so you have all of your, I always say document your training. Document the fact you had training. The more that you have documented, it cuts out anybody coming back at you and saying that you did not treat them well, especially from a quote-unquote law standpoint. So again, a couple management tips as we get closer, as we wind some of this down, is when you're training and you're implementing your strategy, set the expectations, welcome them. Okay? As I said, I learned a lot of this from waiting tables, but set the expectations. Here's what we're going to be doing. Here's why we're doing it. Here's how it's going to implement as everyone's getting settled. As I said, describe from them as a salesperson what this new change is going to look like at the end. How is it going to make it easier for them? How is it going to improve their work life? That's what people want to see. Paint that picture. Again, specific directions and timing. Time your follow-up. With follow-up, you can stop following up. So if you implement a new strategy, I'd be following up every day. Just quickly, boom, in, where are we at, what's going on, how's it going, great, boom. Somebody is doing, this is where you start breaking off into individual follow-up. Bob's doing it really well. I start checking on him every 2 days, then every 3 days, then maybe every 4 days. Now I'm down to weekly. You may check it every other week. The key is you never stop following up. You may do it bigger intervals in between when you follow up, but you never stop following up. The minute you stop following up, it's not important to you, it's not important to them, and that's why 6 months from now, you're going to start going, didn't we used to do that? Yeah, I thought we did. How come we don't do it anymore? Because you didn't follow up. Keep your people updated, good and bad. As you said, in terms of accountability, some people like to let everyone know as a group. Some people like their smaller groups, some one-on-one. I personally think that you discipline in private, okay? Discipline in private, praise in public. That's not to say that you might use examples to a large group of some of the struggles that some people are having as a warning to the group, but I would never point out and go, well, Bob over here is just failing miserably because X, okay? This also, again, with your training, following this coaching process, allows you to think ahead before questions arise. By handling some of these, you're going to get feedback from people that also is going to trigger in your mind, this is working, this is not, we have to make adjustment. Remember, they're doing it day in and day out. It may sound really great in your brain. In your mind, it's pictured one way. I can't tell you how many times in my mind our process was brilliant. Brilliant on the whiteboard, brilliant in my mind, but what actually 3 or 4 months later worked was a variation, and why it was a variation is I got feedback from my frontline team who were honest enough to me and come up and go, yeah, it sounded good on paper, it's not working. And always thank your team. Some people say, well, why should I thank? Nobody thanks me. Hey, listen, the higher up in management you go, the less thanks you're going to get. It's just expected. But you want to thank your people. People say, well, nobody ever thanked me for coming into work. Well, then be different. Thank your people. Thanks for the hard effort. Thanks for the good job today. People, you want to keep your people, appreciate your people. So I always say, what's your harvest? Just like a garden, we go out and we water our plants. So same thing. You're giving them attention. That's your water. You're giving them nutrients. That's your training. You're pulling out the weeds of your garden. That's those bad habits by following up. You just don't plant something in the beginning of the season and wait till 3 months later and walk back in the garden and go, oh, what happened? Same thing. Paying attention to your people, grooming them, weeding their gardens, giving them what they need, and treating each plant differently depending on This one's more in the sun than the other one. This one's taking this to whatever it is. Same with your people. They're all different. They're all going to learn at a different pace. You as a coach, you as a leader, if you want your strategy to be implemented correctly and fire on all cylinders, you got to start looking at some point, once you get past that training, you got to start treating everybody individually. And this person's moving along, great. This one needs a little extra. This one needs a little kick in the ass. This veteran is falling back, or this new person was doing well. That's your job as a coach. You have to be pushing, prodding, training, and that way your team likes you because they see you're putting in the effort and time into them. They'll go to the wall for you. They'll fight for you. And then you have a stronger team that's going to execute and win. So to wrap up, a couple takeaways. This takes time and effort. I am not going to kid you. This isn't quick. Training and implementing a strategy takes time. It takes effort. It needs you to be clear. It needs you to be consistent. You need to be consistent on your follow-up. You need to be clear on what you expect. Clear on your demonstration, constantly praising them, update the team. Here's where we're at. We fell off a little bit. Here's why I think. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. It's not judgmental. It's not we stink. And even if we hit it, hey guys, this was great. We had a great month. Here's the reasons why. Let's keep doing that. Okay? Make sure everyone's held accountable. There isn't anybody who does not get follow-up. There isn't someone who is not pushed. Okay? And given feedback. Great job. Keep it going. Whatever. It has that, as I said, trickle-down effect. Because if you start dealing with the top people get attention and follow-up too, it trickles down that you're paying attention to them. And it's not, well, we're lower salespeople, so we get it, they don't get it. And again, like I said, it's easier to manage your team. If you invest in this training and this style of training and coaching, you will find that your team is easier to manage. Everybody starts understanding what's expected. They're doing it. You will start seeing a switch where people will start coming to you and saying, Glenn, you know what? I'm struggling. Can you look at me? Can you watch how I do this because it's not working anymore? Can you coach me? See, that's ultimately the goal of a successful team. People coming to you and saying, I need some help. Can you look at this? Can you listen to me because I'm hitting a wall here? It's easier to manage. As I said, it's easier to get your people back on track. If they saw you do it, you saw them do it, they told you what's going on, boom, we're done. Easy for me to get back on track. So when I teach, I always give a couple books that have been influential for me, have always helped me. So here's a couple, 3 books. We'll go right to left. Drive, Daniel Pink. It's what people motivates us. Again, the word motivation, it's really, you can't motivate someone else. They have to motivate themselves. What you have to put in front of them is why. Why do they have to do it? You have to sell them on the idea of the value, what the change is going to be, and what's the payoff. Then that's going to instill some sort of motivation in them. You cannot motivate another individual. Anyone who tells you can go motivate somebody, they're wrong. Because I challenge anyone to stand up right now and say, great, I'm going to motivate that team. It's not. It's what you did results in motivation. Second one, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Great book. Helps you stay organized. Gets you to think a little differently. And lastly, the one on the left, probably one of the best books I've ever read. It's an older book. Why Employees Don't Do What They're Supposed to and What You to Do About it. Great, great book. You can still get it on Amazon. I highly recommend it. Anyone who leads a team, coaches a team, please get that book and read it. So, it's time. I appreciate everybody. I hope you got a lot out of it. It's time to ask your questions. Give me some examples, what you're doing, what you're struggling with, what's working. Let's share with everybody. Eliana?
Glenn, that was fabulous, and I love the 3 books that you picked out as well. Okay, audience, if you have questions for our presenter today, Glenn, then please send them on in. We will be getting to those in just a moment. We actually have to give away some prizes right now. Are you ready, Glenn?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, so it's that time. If you missed it at the beginning of the webinar, well, I announced that our good friends at PCG Digital Marketing are going to be giving away, well, a few things. Actually, everyone on here today is going to receive Glenn's checklist for training success. That's for everyone. So if you want it, then send out an email to Glenn with the subject line, Dealer on Webinar. and his email is Glenn with 2 N's at pcgmailer.com, and he'll send you out that checklist. Really, really awesome. You're going to want that. So everyone's a winner today, but we got another prize for you if you're ready. PCG Digital Marketing is also awarding a free, private 30-minute trading assessment with Glenn himself. So 5 of you lucky webinar attendees, you're going to have a chance to win this right now. All you have to do is be the first one with the correct answer in our quiz right now. So saunter on up to your keyboard, get that mouse ready. Here we go, and good luck, everyone. We're going to do 5 different questions. You have 5 chances to win. All right? So if you're ready, here we go. Glenn, are you ready?
I'm ready.
This is the point which I wish I had some game show music. Okay, so here's the first question, everyone. Like I said, good luck. First one to write in the correct response wins. First question is, go back to the very, very, very beginning of the webinar, and Glenn was talking about the different types of learning. What type of learning did Glenn call traditional learning? He had a picture, he talked about it, he explained why he called it that. Hello, is anyone out there? Can they hear me? No one wrote in. No, those answers aren't right yet. So what type of learning did Glenn call traditional learning? Glenn, I did not realize that this is going to be such a tough question. Oh, we have a winner. Yay, we have a winner. Chad Lemieux was correct. The answer was Swiss cheese. Don't you remember the slide with the big piece of Swiss cheese? Made me hungry. Okay, Chad, congratulations. I'm going to write down your name. And Chad, if you could write on in and let me know what dealership you are from, I'd like to give you a proper congratulations. Don't worry, everyone. You got 4 more chances to win. And Chad, for being the one with the correct answer on that first question, you get to sit the rest of this quiz out because you're already a winner, Chad. And Chad still hasn't written in to let me know what dealership he's from, but I hope he does so soon. Okay, we're going to move on to the next the next question, excuse me. Okay, next question is, and get ready, everyone, and good luck. What is the largest group in the 4 communication styles? The largest group. All right. We have a winner, Michelle Prim. You are our winner, and the correct answer was planner. Congratulations, Michelle. By the way, Glenn, Michelle wrote in really, really early on when you were talking about it. She wrote in praise in public, punish in private, and I was going to say it, but I didn't get a chance to. So Michelle is doing it all right. So Michelle, write on in and let me know where you're from. Chad Lemieux is from Acura Mission Viejo. Nice, Chad. Very nice. And Michelle, wherever you're from, hopefully we'll find out soon. Oh, she's from Cascade Auto Group. Thank you so much, Michelle. And Chad, you are 2 of our 5 winners today. We got some more to give away. Don't worry. But Michelle and Chad, you can relax right now. Next question is, what is one of the most important steps of the 8-step coaching process? What is one of the most important steps of the 8-step coaching process? Glenn actually pointed it out and said exactly which one it was. And yes, we have a winner, Chris Franklin. Chris Franklin, you win a lot on my show. Is it just because you pay attention and you're a fast typer? That's what I want to know. But yes, you are correct. Demonstration is the correct answer. You wrote in, yeah, LOL. Chris, where are you from again? You have to write on in and let me know. Chris Franklin. Okay, Chris. Gosh, Chris, you have won like 3 or 4 times on my show, I think. It pays to come to my webinars, I'm telling you. All right, everyone, we still have, don't say you're sorry. We still have a couple more to give away. Here we go. Name one other important step in the 8-step coaching process. Name one other important step in the 8-step coaching process. Now, Glenn, can I pick any answer that comes up, or I should pick the one that you listed?
You tell me, whatever.
can tell you whatever.
But whoever typed in one of them, go, so we can move them along.
Okay, Willie Cruz typed in feedback. Was that correct?
Good.
Yeah, we like that one. All right, Willie Cruz, you are my winner. Willie Cruz, tell me what dealership you're from. I really appreciate it. Okay, last question. Super, super easy. It's anyone's game. One more up for grabs. Here you go. Question is, how many books did Glenn recommend at the end of his presentation? We have a winner, Stephanie Henderson. Stephanie Henderson, you are my winner today, my friend. The correct answer was 3. That is correct. And Stephanie Henderson. Congratulations, Chad Lemieux, Michelle Prim, Chris Franklin, Willie Cruz, and Stephanie Henderson. And of course, we want to thank Glenn and PCG Digital Marketing for their incredible generosity. We do appreciate it. And everyone, you'll be hearing from somebody over at PCG to set up that date and time for your 30-minute training assessment. Okay, let's get to the questions. Are you ready, Glenn?
Sure.
Okay, first question comes to us from Joe. And he says, I don't do the training, but my manager does. How do I make my manager a better trainer? Glenn, that's a tough question.
No, actually, that's a great question, and I was hoping somebody would ask that. Who asked that again? I'm sorry?
Joe.
Joe, okay. So, Joe, it's not easy. One, it depends how receptive your trainer is, your coach is, or your manager is to help them. One is, are they receptive? You might want to say, listen, I was on a great webinar about coaching and training. I just thought it might be something you might want to listen to. If they're not, again, it's helping them, showing them, maybe make a gift, go out and say why employees don't do it, get the book and say, give it to them and say, hey, this was a really great book for me. Again, you give gifts. There's subtle ways to do it, especially if your manager is not receptive or they think they're a great trainer. That is not an easy thing. As I said, what I used to do would talk to them about training, leave little notes, give them something just to say, hey, I think this might benefit the team. So think of it that way. Hey, maybe this will help benefit the team. And here was something I was just on a webinar. I thought maybe you and the rest of us should watch. It's great for the team. So this way it could help us understand how to make it easier for you, Mr. Manager, to manage us. See what I'm saying? You spin it to say, I'm doing this to help you get better, make it easier to manage us. This seemed to make sense. Just thought you might want to look at it. So that's one way you can do it. If they're really hardball people who are just not going to change, I've dealt with people who are not receptive. Sometimes again, it depends if you're getting results, if they're mean or if they're not following up. Maybe during a performance review, if you have them and someone above them or someone besides them is there saying, if they say, well, how could we improve? What's one thing you'd like? You might turn around and say, I'd really like some more feedback on how I'm doing, or I'd like some more training. So that would be another route. But a lot of times it'll work because coaches a lot of times are put in that position and they weren't trained, and by somebody extending their hand out to say, hey, this was a great webinar, thought you might like it, it may spur something.
Great question and great answer, Glenn. Thank you so much, Joe, for that question. It's funny, it wasn't really a question, it's more of a statement, but when you were talking about laydowns, Joshua wrote in, sometimes laydowns are a result of doing things right. Glenn, do you agree?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, but as I said, is that what we have to make sure is that when we look at our results and if we had a good month, we want to make sure that we did all the steps. Because there is, yes, I would hope that a lot of sales, there are going to be some that are just easy because they're in a good mood and you're hitting all the right steps and it's just one of those perfect things. I'm just saying is that I have seen it where people have gotten sales, and if you really looked at what they did, in any other day, that sale should have blown up, but it didn't blow up for whatever reason. Maybe the person was like, just again, listening to them going, good God, could he please stop talking, just take my money, I got to get out of here? Who knows? I'm just saying is like when we look at the results, just make sure we're taking a step back and analyzing why we got those results and did we hit all of our steps. Even if we got the sale, we may have not hit all our steps, just to remind ourselves to go, we got one in the bin here, but that may not work next time.
Gotcha. Joshua, thank you so much for that. I want to get to these last couple of questions because I know that we're running really, really late today. Allison wrote in, how many chances do you give Bob and for how long? And Marianne kind of wrote in the same thing. She says, let them fail. Won't that reflect badly on me as their manager if they fail?
Okay, good questions. Let's take the second one first.
Okay.
Let them fail. Marianne, let them fail. Won't that reflect badly? Not necessarily, and it shouldn't, because again, if we're on top of them and following up, we're talking about minor things. And if we're following up, especially when we're putting in a new strategy, if I'm following up daily or every other day, how bad could they possibly be? You know, maybe they're not following up on calls. Maybe they handled a bad call. But it's more, one call is not going to ruin your month. One bad email is not going to ruin your month. One blown opportunity in the dealership. The key is, what happens is that if you don't follow up and you're not paying attention, they could go down a road and, you know, don't misinterpret by me letting them fail being that they're failing over here in the corner and you got your fingers in the ear on the other side going la, 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 la. I'm saying is that once they fail, get on them and say that's your one time, let's get it readjusted versus fail, 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 fail. Who was the other person?
Allison.
Allison. Okay, so Allison, how many times? That's dependent on you. Depending on who it is. It also depends on the support you have from your leadership of how much, you know, again, you could be sitting there with Bob and you go up to the manager and say, listen, Bob's not following the process, go. And the manager turns around and goes, yeah, whatever, Allison, he sells 18 cars, leave him alone. Okay? That's a business decision of the manager, and you have to be able to sit down and say, here's why, you got to have your case. You got to sell them. Here's what it is. How do I patch it? Bob could be a friend of the general manager and it doesn't matter what he does, he's not getting fired. Well, how do I keep Bob away from the rest of my team? How do I explain that? And, you know, it's a different manager. But in most times, I always go, if they're not getting the results they want first time, shame on me as a trainer. I should train better. Let me go back and retrain. Second time, I'll still retrain again as long as I'm seeing the effort. And even the third time, if I'm seeing the effort there, sometimes it just takes somebody a little longer. But there is going to be a point where if it's just them not caring and basically going, screw you, Allison, I don't care what you say, I'm doing it my way, then it's basically they're heading down a road where it's, you know, you set the standard. Listen, if I see this again, this is going to happen. Sometimes a suspension wakes people up. Sometimes sitting with them, as I just said, to either a, an employee, male or female, to say, I'm sorry. I use the words, I'm confused a lot. And save those words. That's another gift to you out there to say, I'm confused, Bob. Let me walk through this. You're married. You have a good salary. Let me get this right. You're willing that if I'm going to let you go today, 2 weeks from now you're going to get your last check, and then you're not going to have any money down the road. So let me get this right. You're going to go home to your wife and you're going to say, I got fired from my job, hon, because I didn't want to fill out a form correctly, or I didn't want to read a script that they told me to do it, and so guess what? We're not going to have any paycheck in 2 weeks. And I usually joke and say if that was my wife, she'd hit me in the head with something. You know? So again, sometimes you make the lunacy of, what happens tomorrow if you lose your job today? Like, what's going to happen? Do you really want to go down that road over this silly little thing? If they still want to fight you on it, again, it depends on the support of your ownership. I used to give my managers leeway. Sometimes what I would do is I would go up to my general manager and go, listen, I've tried everything. Bob's on his last step. Maybe you can talk to Bob and straighten it out, or get the dealer principal to go, and then the dealer principal looks at Bob and goes, are you kidding me? You're kidding me, right? Like you're in front of my desk over this nonsense? So sometimes using the people above you to help reinforce Bob's lunacy might flip him out of it.
There you go, Allison and Marianne. I hope that helped you both out. Last question comes to us from one of our winners, Chris Franklin. And he says, what is the best way to be a leader in training when you're not in a management position?
How do you be a leader in training? Can you explain to me, give me a little more? So you're training the team, but you're not the manager doing that? Is that what you're saying, Chris?
Exactly, he wrote in.
Okay. So again, a very good question is that sometimes managers and, when people ask me who should be a trainer, I tell them never your top salespeople because they don't understand what they do. They can't communicate it to people, okay? And it'll screw you up. Sometimes it's the people who are above average salespeople. They follow all the processes. Those are your best trainers. So in your case, if you're seen as someone who's doing what needs to be done and also putting yourself in a position to coach and train the other people, what you're seen then to your manager and everyone else is an asset. You're an asset in that dealership because I can always get Chris to train this team and do it. Eventually, that may move you into a managerial role because it's seen that you can manage and coach a team and deliver results because dealers are smart. Dealers can see who's really doing the work. That manager may be getting the results and everyone's patting them on the back, but everybody's talking about it because everybody will talk and say, well, Chris is the reason why we're doing really well. It filters around and eventually it rolls up and then they start looking and they see you. So being a leader is not necessarily a title. Okay, understand that a title is nothing more than something that works at on a business card and works well at cocktail parties. At the end of the day, I don't really like titles. To me, it's can you deliver the results? So for you, lead your team by example, coach and train, be an asset, be a helper, and eventually that will show people that you deliver results. That's ultimately what a dealer wants on their team. They want someone who can get other people motivated, can get people over the hump, can get results, and that title of a manager means nothing.
Chris, great question. Glenn, excellent answer and fabulous presentation. Thank you so much, Glenn. We're way over time. And I love this high-level management style that you have going on. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I hope that there are people out there that are going to share this webinar with a lot of other people because this definitely is a management style I think more dealerships could definitely use and be very, very successful with. So thank you so much, Glenn. It was really, really great finally having you on my webinar.
So, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so I want to remind the audience that a link to download a copy of today's webinar recording is going to be emailed to you later today for your reference. Feel free to share it with friends and colleagues. And today's webinar is also going to be posted online within 24 hours. So just go to dealeron.com/webinars and click on the link on the right-hand side for on-demand webinars. And over there you can access any of our past webinars. Hey, you can also view and register for any of our upcoming webinars too. And also at the conclusion of this webinar in just a moment, you're going to receive a short survey. So fill it out because we're always looking for great feedback from our audience. And we're going to randomly select a couple of people from all the completed surveys to also win some Google prizes. So another chance to win. I also want to let you know that Dealeron is going to be at the upcoming AutoCon convention, September 4th, 5th, and 6th at the Aria Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. We're going to be at booth 304. PCG is also going to have a booth there too, so you got to stop by and say hi. And it's going to be a great convention. I'm going to be there. For more information or to buy tickets, go to autocon2013.com. While you're there, please check out the speaking session with the CEO of Dealeron, Ali Amirazvani. He'll be talking about advanced SEO, and he packs a room. It's a great, great speaking session. You don't want to miss that. And Glenn, you're going to be speaking there as well. What are you speaking on?
We're doing a joint session with Mark McGurran from our consulting division.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking on, the title of it is, Are Your Customers Hearing What You're Saying? So we're going to talk about communication style, how to translate that into email templates, communications to help your engagement level, and eventually appointment/show/sell more cars.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, Mark McGurn's done the show a couple times with me. He's a very, very good presenter. So the two of you are going to be a powerhouse show. I hope I don't get to miss it. So I'll be out there in Las Vegas with you. So it's going to be a great conference. If you want to go, remember, it's autocon2013.com. And hey, invitations are going to be going out tomorrow for our next webinar. the Google Plus webinar. Amplify your dealership's brand. Hey, did you know that Google Plus is now the second largest social networking site in the world? It just surpassed Twitter in January of this year. So if you're not using Google, then you're missing an enormous opportunity. Is your dealership using Google? Is your dealership even on Google Plus? If your dealership has been holding off from fully utilizing Google Plus, then wait no longer. The experts from Google are here, and they're ready to help. During this free 1-hour webinar, automotive industry strategist from Google, Peter Lito, and Google Plus product expert, Tommy Bars, from the Google Dealer Jumpstart team, are going to discuss Google Plus business and local pages. This is the definitive Google Plus webinar for which you've been waiting. It's a can't-miss event. It's going to be another can't-miss presentation by your friends at DealerOn. And don't forget, our weekly webinars are held every Thursday, 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We have some great webinar subjects planned for this year, but if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions regarding these webinars or our topics, hey, contact me directly. My name is Eliana Raggio. I love hearing from you. You can email me directly at eliana@dealeron.com or track me down online. I am on all the automotive social networks and Facebook and Twitter. So thank you all so very much for spending this time with us today. And I hope we see you all on a future webinar in our continuing education series. Have yourselves a good one.